I had a kind of an emotional reaction to the time, the 4-second time. But I actually went back and watched some of my self-tapes and just watched the first 4 seconds to see, okay, did I nail that entrance, or did I nail the moment before? Did I come in as the character? Some I did, some I didn't.
You have all these football players just have a ball during these speeches. We're watching on the telecast for local TV. They're trying to time it to bleep out the curses. And inevitably, they're always 5 seconds too late. So all the curses were coming in on local TV.
Outstanding.
Hey guys, welcome to the Actor's Guide to the End of the World podcast, where we talk about acting in Hollywood in a way people understand. I'm E-Kan Song, and this is...
And I'm Rían and Kelly.
Follow us wherever you find your podcasts. We're on YouTube. We're on Substack. And follow us on all social media at Actors Guide Podcast. And on the show for today, we're going to talk a little bit more about the 4-second self-tape controversy from last week. Just a lot more to dig into.
Yeah, and we had an opportunity to think about it ourselves, and I found that my opinion changed over the week.
Also, coincidentally, we talked about AI in the Oscars last week. We're going to discuss how the Academy is considering making it mandatory to disclose AI use in its films. Also, Rían and I had an exciting week in sports.
Very exciting.
We're going to talk a little bit about Super Bowl. I went to the Eagles parade. Go Birds. And Rían had a little adventure with the Manchester United team. So
very fun week.
We're going to dig into all that. It's going to be a good episode. Sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Now, a word from our sponsor for today's episode. Does your pet get the yips in auditions? Does your little friend literally shit the bed at callbacks?
Welcome to the Royal Academy for Dramatic Barks, where your puppies will be trained by acting legends Ellen Barkin,
Mark Ruffalo,
and Sir Patrick Stewart. Sign up today.
Last time we recorded was before the Super Bowl. I'm going to hold back my Eagles enthusiasm because I could have easily talked for 2 hours just about the Eagles Super Bowl, but I'm not.
I'll indulge you a bit if you want to say some words.
Oh, yeah, indulge me. Indulge me is the perfect word.
Do you want to make a little speech?
I did have something prepared. Anyway, so...
I want to thank the following people.
So the Eagles had a pretty great Super Bowl. We're not here to rub it in. It was pretty epic. This didn't make the cut last week, but I do want to say we knew this ever since the last Super Bowl 2 years ago. The Kansas City fans are the nicest people ever. When they beat us 2 years ago in Arizona, they were so polite. Even after the game, it was almost as if they were apologizing to us. They were that friendly. You know, we're all depressed. We're leaving Arizona. And obviously the Eagles fans were very depressed. So, you know, we're going to try to be classy here. And it was just an epic game. It was incredibly one-sided. The Eagles just came locked in, prepared. And it was, I mean, to be honest, the game was just a straight-up blowout.
Is that fun for you, a blowout, or would you have preferred a much closer game?
It was so much fun.
You wouldn't like a tight game with more drama?
If you're watching the Super Bowl and you watch that game, and I know many, many, many people who felt this, they thought it was a horrible Super Bowl. I am okay with them feeling it's a horrible Super Bowl because they're not an Eagles fan. So that's fair.
Yeah.
If you're an Eagles fan, you just want to win. Epic win ever. We'll take. Like, we are celebrating for 2 hours, and then we're also been celebrating all week. So to be honest, we don't care how good the game is. We just want to win. So the fact that we didn't have to worry, like, the game was over almost by halftime. So we're just partying our butts off. You know what I mean? Was it a great Super Bowl? I can understand because a lot of people are tired of the Chiefs winning, and a lot of people don't like Eagles fans. I can understand people having negative opinions of the game. That being said, apparently it was the #1 watched Super Bowl in history. So kind of like what we're talking about as far as the power of the NFL. I mean, here's the thing. This is why Amazon's playing NFL games. This is why Netflix is playing live sports. We just got to acknowledge, hey, this is what everyone wants to watch. And people tuned in. I did want to talk about this. We were talking a little bit about how you were asking what Philly fans are like and what is the vibe. I went to the parade yesterday. I went to Philadelphia in Center City. It's a big to do because this is not our first rodeo. People slept overnight to camp out and get a good spot. It was like the ball dropping in Times Square. People camped out overnight to get a spot. People were lined up to see the speeches at 7 a.m. I was a little more reasonable. I kind of wanted to do that, but I was more reasonable. Me and my friend just went to the parade. We were like front row, and we saw the parades, floats, and all those things. So it was great. In a nutshell of what Philly Eagles fans are like, it's kind of like this fun known thing that people throw beers to the players, and then they'll drink some, throw beers back. It's kind of like this fun thing, right? Apparently, our GM, the GM is the one who orchestrates the entire team. He's a genius, and he's part of the reason why we win so much. He literally got hit in the head with a full can of beer.
Okay. Jesus.
And he got hit, and you could say that it was an accident, okay?
Yeah.
He was bleeding. When they did the speeches, he was bleeding on his forehead. There was a huge gash.
Jesus, dude.
You could say that, hey, let's not overreact. It might be an accident. It's kind of clear someone threw that can way too hard. like there's no defending whoever threw that can. I finally saw the video. It came in really fast, really hard. That was just uncalled for. And to make it even better, the GM, Howie Roseman, gets on the speech. He shows up because everybody already knows that he got hit in the head with you. He gets on to the podium. He goes, "I bleed for this city." This is what Philadelphia is like. The way that he's been for the past seven some years. The other thing I will add, what's so Philly is you have all these football players just have a ball during these speeches. We're watching on the telecast for local TV. They're trying to time it to bleep out the curses. And inevitably, the curses always get in, and then they're always 5 seconds too late. So all the curses were coming in on local TV.
Outstanding.
Anyway, it was so Philly. It was great. Yeah, that was it. So I'm flying high.
Brilliant.
Flying the pun.
Go Birds. Yeah. Speaking of general managers and best ever, I went to Old Trafford on Friday for Manchester United versus Leicester in the FA Cup.
Oh yeah, that was the big game, right? That you went to last week?
I went in style, let me say. My pal Emmett, who we've mentioned on the podcast a number of times, graciously invited me along, and we had seats in the director's box, and we ate in the director's restaurant, and I met some of my absolute sporting heroes. The number one being Sir Alex Ferguson, who is the greatest manager in football history, possibly the greatest manager in any sport, I would think.
Wow.
13 Premier League titles, 2 Champions League titles, numerous cups. Just an absolute legend. So it was...
What team?
Quite surreal. Manchester United.
Wow. I didn't realize that was the team that you guys were going to or, watching.
And as a lifelong United fan, it was particularly special. It was just amazing. I was talking to Brian Robson. I was talking to Dennis Irwin. This will mean nothing to you, I don't think, but
I know. Man U is iconic. So I didn't realize that was your team.
Yeah. My dad's a lifelong United supporter. Same. My granddad was a United supporter. So it's my dad was when I came back. My dad was almost as excited as me. He just wanted to hear it from start to finish, and exactly what. And we went back for a drink in Sir Alex's private lounge. We got invited back after the match. It was an unbelievable experience. So massive shout out to Emmett for that. It was incredible.
Did you were preparing that you were going to see people, but did you know who you're going to see?
I honestly no, because I didn't know who was going to be there, or I didn't really have an idea what the experience was going to be like, and it was just better than I could have imagined. I'm still kind of blown away, but I was sitting in the middle of it going, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. But the seats were incredible, directors, but you can't get any better than that. You also can't. It's not an experience you could buy. You know what I mean? You have to sort of just be invited. There is corporate hospitality, there's sort of boxes and stuff that you could buy, but you can't buy seats in the director's box. That's where the directors of the club sit, where the managers, where the
special
Sir
invite
Alex
guest.
former manager, and but it was an absolutely amazing experience. I kind of kept going, oh my God, I'm here. And then just chatting to legends. Like, how do you chat to a legend? You know, what do you say? You just try not to fuck up the conversation.
I was gonna say it's just perfect timing because I saw your pictures and you got, obviously there's a dress code, fancy jacket. You were looking pretty sharp.
Yep.
And on the other side over in Philly, we're winging beer cans and just trying to dodge beer cans at the parade. But yeah,
it was a very different experience, let me tell you.
So moving on, it's funny, I haven't said word around town in a long time, but yeah, our word around town. So picking up with what we spoke about last week, we dug into AI use in Amelia Perez and The Brutalist. So this also came out around last week, and it's kind of spot on, and it's just this is a little follow up. Oscars consider requiring films to disclose AI use after The Brutalist, Amelia Perez controversies, and this is an ongoing thing. I think it's a great idea. I mean, we've been thinking about this in a lot of aspects of the media as far as an AI warning label.
It's interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
I don't know if they're labeling things on social media, but think about all the deep fakes. And I think it's fair just so when people start voting on these contenders, they're aware.
Yeah, and is it saying with the Oscars that it would disqualify a film, or it would just be it would just be a qualifier gone, by the way?
Hold on, let me just clarify that because you're right. I should make that clear. Actively explore changing its Oscar submission requirements so that films would have to disclose their use of AI.
Okay, but there's no further. It would just be a label, right? It would just be
it would just be disclosing it.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. I mean, look, I don't know. I don't see any
it's
problem
still a
with
step. It's still a step. Yeah.
It is a step, and it makes people more aware of it. It's like here in the EU. Like if you have a GMO product in any food, it has to be labeled. It has to say GMO. Because
by the way, I take that stuff seriously.
Yeah, I do too.
I do want to clarify. There are some aspects of the Brutalist that we did not mention last week. The Brutalist was used specifically for the Hungarian speech. Hungarian.
The pronunciation of certain words, yeah.
Exactly. Now, I just want to be clear because when we were discussing, I was actually thinking the Hungarian speech speaking English. We are talking about only the words of Adrian Brody and Felicity Jones speaking Hungarian. Crazy enough, I actually just started the movie, not for this podcast, but I just started watching the movie last night. So that's a drastic difference. He's speaking English with a Hungarian accent. We are not talking about all those lines, him speaking English. We are talking about the lines of him speaking Hungarian. So
let's think about this. So there would have to be some criteria. It's, and I'm just kind of playing devil's advocate here because I think AI is a fair threat to our industry at large, and certainly visual effects. Well, there would have to be some criteria, because if you just blanket say AI was used, well, if it was used to clean up dialogue, is that the same as, somebody's performance being changed? Or so I think there are gradients of AI use. I'm trying to liken it to, CGI, right? So
yeah. You're spot on. As well, in this article, there are many other films that used AI. It just so happened that these are the two ones that kind of lit up the headlines because it's dealing with the main actor and it's also major Oscar contenders. But when we look down the row, and I'm not going to bore everyone with this, but there are many, many, many films this year that have used some aspect of AI. We're going to need to learn about this, and they're going to have to find criteria that's fair. An example of this, which happened earlier, if you were a photographer or did some social media and you use certain tools on a program that, because every tool these days is kind of using an aspect of AI, some famous, well-known photographers were getting watermarked for AI use. And basically the point is, whoa, you guys flagged me for AI for something that's so essentially just normal technology, but it fell into the category of AI, it flagged them. Because if you're going to tell me just because I used Photoshop that you're going to flag all of my photos for using AI and I'm going to become an AI photographer, that's the tricky line of this. So let me just go through some of this because we are talking about, we already talked about Brulis and Emilia Perez. Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, used AI to turn the younger one, transform it into Anya Taylor-Joy. So they used 150 shots to steadily transition the character from child to adult. A Complete Unknown, the Bob Dylan movie, used 3 wide shots of a motorcycle, which is normal for stunt work. So does that fall into the category, the stunt enhancement that they've been doing for 10 years? We talked a little bit about that last week. Used a copycat program to make their eyes blue for the what's those people? Those people with the blue eyes.
I'll fuck that name up if I try it.
Oh, the Fremens. So they used a machine learning model to identify and replicate the blue tone in the eyes of actors playing the Fremens. And in doing so, saved hundreds of hours of work. Can you imagine? It's like the guy it's hours of tedious making everyone's eyes blues.
Yeah, and I also wasn't aware, as you brought up, like how much of cleaning up actors' performances special effects teams do.
Even without AI. And that's without
right,
AI.
exactly. Yeah, and that's without AI. So AI is the latest technology. It just so happens that AI poses a fairly existential threat to our to a lot of aspects of filmmaking.
And technically AI just does it at this point and in the future. It's going to do it better and quicker.
Well, one, I think the starting point has to be pretty strict protective guidelines, as you know we discussed in the actors' strike. And I think the more transparency, the better with this stuff, because I'm not even aware of how extensive AI is used. I'm not even, but like, why would I be? But I'm sure it's used a hell of a lot more than we think it is. I mean, this whole article, I didn't even know all these instances until we talked about it. Like Deadpool and Wolverine is on this article. Yeah, but even if it transpired that you were AI, would that surprise me? If you were entirely AI, I don't know, maybe not. Let's get into the ongoing conversation about self-tapes. Yeah. So, the beauty of, first of all, I have to say, I had no idea when we decided to talk about the self-tape controversy about the 4 seconds. I had no idea how invested and how lit up a lot of our community was. Even as this week went on, a lot of people gave responses. A lot of more opinions chimed in. The casting directors themselves actually did a follow-up, and we took a closer look at that. It's an ongoing conversation. I'm feeling my mind opening up as the week went on. Yeah. And I feel differently about it now than I did initially, because I think I had a knee-jerk reaction to it, and I don't feel the same way this week. So we'll get into it, but I have a number of thoughts about it. I think this conversation has room for a lot of nuance, and that was just the skimming the surface last week. But when we have these conversations, I look at it as the beginning of the conversation. I don't look at it as these are our final thoughts, these are all the answers. I feel like a lot of these conversations that we have are trying to figure out what we think and trying to figure out what's really going on. I also realized that this is one casting director's opinion. And I had a very knee-jerk reaction to it. But as I thought about it over the week, I'm like, well, one, I listened to a bit of their response to it and their follow-up. And one thing I noticed with that was... it's a very soundbitey clip, and I got sort of fixated on the 4 seconds. I doubt very much if even that casting director, Tiffany Roche, I doubt very much if she only spends 4 seconds on every tape. I think it was a kind of it didn't serve her to say that, because that became the story then, that she only watches tapes for 4 seconds. Yeah, exactly. People were kind of blowing it. Yeah, fixating is a good word. Yeah, and then I had to sort of examine my own feelings on it, and I realized that, so what do I want from a self-tape? One, I'm grateful to get an audition. I actually love self-tapes, and we talked a bit about that too, but I don't think that made it in. We can get into that today a little bit. But I do really enjoy self-tapes. So they're often, which is maybe a bit sad, but they're often the best part of my day. Like, I really do enjoy doing them. And then when I do them now, I don't think this was always the case, but when I do them now and I send them, I just kind of let them go. So how they're received is kind of none of my business. You know what I mean? So whether they watch them for 4 seconds or the whole thing, it's not that important to me personally. I think what gave me the knee-jerk sort of outrage was like, I know the time that actors spend and the effort and the time and the preparation and the money that you put into this career in general and making self-tapes and sending them off.
This idea of fair, this idea of we want to solve their problem. They have a problem. We want to solve it. There is no fair in this. There is no, I deserve this.
No,
there's no
exactly.
There's no
entitlement.
I just want to hammer that home because that didn't make it into last week's episode. And for them to watch an entire self-tape because they feel guilty, we're not doing ourselves we're not doing ourselves service by saying, hey, you guys have to watch all of our tape if we know that the last 5 minutes of it are inaccurate. And so my point is this first 4 seconds is we know what we're doing, we're accurate, but most importantly, we are here to solve your problem. Yeah. And that's kind of like where I'm reframing, where we can get into the whole what their response is, but I feel like that would take 2 hours. But most importantly, this is where I think the mindset of an actor we can really kind of adjust because, and also a great thing how you were saying it, like because we've gotten reps, maybe we can be less precious about all 5 minutes of our self-tape. Maybe we can hit the ground running. You see what I'm doing from the first moment, and you can always trust us to do a great self-tape because we're always going to hit the ground running, and you're going to keep asking, you're going to keep calling us in, and maybe that's the win. And you don't have to watch all of our tapes.
Yeah, and that was the other thing that we did say. It doesn't change anything for us. You know what I mean? Her saying that doesn't change anything. If anything, it sort of makes me focus on, oh yeah, that's right. It's just a nice reminder, like that's how I have to show up. And like you say, how anybody does their job is out of my control and none of my business. In the same way that a casting director doesn't have a say in how I prep for an audition. You know, that's my business because that's my job. And
I think this conversation goes beyond this one casting director. I think Absolutely. This conversation has almost nothing to do with Tiffany Roche. And I people can pick apart their follow-up. And I suggest everyone go watch it for themselves instead of just listening to us to discuss it. But because I think we have to remove our emotions and our feelings from it to, hey, this is how we set ourselves apart. And this is our job.
I'm glad that she said it because it sort of forced me to look at it again and go, oh yeah, that's right. That's my job. Because I need constant reminders of what's within my control and what's not within my control. And, you know, I'm far better now. Like you say, we have experience now. So I'm far better now at just letting go of auditions, going, here is my version of what I think this character is and what I think these moments are. Take it or leave it. And also because, you know, as Leslie says, it's a business of moving pictures. You may not look like somebody's idea of what that character should look like. And that can change. You might be the casting director's idea of what that character looks like, but if you're not the director's idea of what that character looks like, well then that's, you know, that's valid.
Someone mentioned this to me, and it very well could have been from the studio, but someone mentioned to me that, you know, most of our jobs, especially starting out, a lot of our job is 70% look, 30% talent. 70% look, 30% skill. Do we fit the role, what they're looking for?
Quite possibly, yeah. I don't know about those percentages, but I'll have to think about that a bit more. But I know exactly what you mean. Also, the other thing that you can't really legislate for is somebody's essence. And I know that from being a reader. Like, someone can be a fantastic actor, but if they don't have the essence of the way that character is written, then they're not getting the part, or they're not right for the part. And that's fine too.
And you could probably tell that in 4 seconds.
Yes, I think so. I actually think you can. So I think all of this just to say that I had a kind of an emotional reaction to the time, the 4-second time. But the more I thought about it over the week, I'm like, yeah, but I've watched friends' self-tapes and I've known if they're good. Exactly. I actually went back and watched some of my self-tapes and just watched the first 4 seconds to see, okay, did I nail that entrance, or did I nail the moment before? Did I come in as the character? Some I did, some I didn't. You know what I mean? In my opinion. So it's really interesting to look at it through that lens. So, you know, I just want to reiterate, like, I know how hard that job is. Like, I know how hard the job of casting is. I'm grateful that self-tapes have democratized the process to some degree, that we can audition for jobs across the world. I've certainly benefited from it. I've booked from tape a number of times.
Also part of the reason why we're digging into this more and kind of having this follow-up, because this is here to stay. This is very much part of our lives. Self-tapes are probably more important than ever, and they're probably going to continue to be important. We weren't here to demonize any casting directors. We didn't do it last week. And also, I think it was eye-opening for a lot of us. I thought that it was good that they had a response. I think it was good that a lot of other people in the industry are chiming in. You talk to a lot of actors, and I have a friend. He's a killer. His name is Mike Massini. He had huge thoughts on this, and I'll just drop a few of his dimes here. When he hears stuff like that, he lights up. He lights up because it just confirms everything he always thought. He goes, I don't even think it takes 4 seconds. If you're not fully dropped in by line 1, you're out. This is a continuation, and it's another way of thinking about moment before, but continuation of the entire life leading up to that moment. It's so not about the first 4 seconds. The 4 seconds aren't even part of the conversation. It's do we see that life in that person before your first line even happens? Are you plugged into the story? It just takes you to a place. He goes on and on, but I mean, if you see his tapes, he crushes for these reasons. No reason to watch if other people are, if you're not on fire before the first word is said. It's just simple as that. And I think if you talk to a lot of, it's polarizing and it's not popular, but if you talk to a lot of killers, this is how they think. And it's not doing you any favors to be like, hey, I killed myself over this 5-minute tape. You need to watch it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's hard as an actor not to be precious about it, but I think as you get the reps and with experience, we become less and less precious about it, and I think our acting is going to be better. This is the other thing. I want to throw this out because it's also one nuance. I made a comment last time as far as, for them to discover the next Edward Norton and so on and so forth, and whether they're going to find the next movie star. They have a problem to solve, and they have less time and less resources to solve it. So we might as well solve the problem. Yeah. It's not a personal thing. It's like, hey, I think this guy's going to be the next superstar and blah, blah, blah. Right. You got a problem to solve, and you got a week. So just a more refined look at what their job is, and also being fair to them. A gun to your head, we're not asking you to say how much time you're spending on each tape. And I think once you get into the black and white of it, that's where it gets super messy and might be not a helpful conversation. Absolutely.
And I think when you think about it, like, other than an agent, you work with a casting director sort of the most in this industry, because they're the person you're dealing with more often than not. And respect, like, have respect for everybody's job, because it's, like I say, like, it's such a collaborative process and it's such a collaborative industry that you need every piece of that puzzle.
I do want to add another tidbit. This is actually an interesting little thing that popped up in conversations over the past week. I have a friend that is starting to take the live virtual Zoom option. So for those who aren't in the industry, self-tapes is very prevalent. But I want to say it was something that we fought for in our contract, that casting directors need to offer a live option. If it's remote, then it's still going to be on Zoom and so on and so forth. But at least you're with a person. That's interesting. If you want to be with a live person and say, this is my 5 minutes and I'm going to have this time with you. I depending on who you are as an actor, and we'll get into, obviously we both appreciate self-tapes and so on, but hey, it's something to think about. As an actor, if you want to explore that option, it's not a bad way to go. If you think that that's going to be an advantage for you. This is what we have to deal with. If you really have a problem with it, if you have a moral indignation about this, there are many, many reasons to pick up and choose a different profession. This is not an easy profession, right?
But my God, it's fun.
Self-tapes is a value add than a value subtract for me. I get more benefit out of self-tapes than not. It does allow developing actors be seen, and it does allow casting directors to see more actors. It definitely benefits me. Hopefully you can make it, take advantage of it and use that as a weapon instead of using it as a liability.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and as far as the live Zoom option goes, I think that's great that's a possibility. I understand that puts a bit more time pressure on casting directors. So personally, I wouldn't do it for every audition, if you felt like it was necessary.
Wait, what do you mean time pressure? You're taking up their time?
Well, they have to schedule that time, you know what I mean, to see you for those.
Yeah, I mean, what I gather is basically, hey, we're seeing people on Tuesday afternoon. We blocked out 3 hours. If you want to take a time slot, we have 5 slots open on Tuesday afternoon.
Oh, okay, I see.
Like I think it's a little more reasonable instead of hey, are you free Wednesday at 5:45?
Yeah,
it's not setting up a date. I want to say.
Yeah, okay. I'd love to get a casting director's take on that too.
Yeah.
On how, I'm glad we got to revisit this. I'm glad we talked about it in the first place. And I have to be aware, I think, in the future of my own first reaction to something. And maybe not run with that and just go, okay, well, why do I feel like that?
Yeah, exactly. And also that's the benefit of us being able to do this every week. So let's do hidden gems. Oh, good God. I knew
I've been thinking about it all day, and I'm like, what the fuck have I done this week that's in any way hidden gem?
It doesn't need to be eye-opening, and also doesn't need to be any week. My hidden gem, and I was thinking about saying this last week, but I'll do it this week. So, if you've heard of Substack, by the way, we are also on Substack. Substack is this new platform. It's everything from podcasts to blogs. I'm warming up to it. I think it's a lot of fun. Anyway, so I stumbled on this huge writer. He's a popular writer on Substack and the internet. His name's Tim Denning. And for whatever reason, this blog post just popped up. It's called I'm 38. If you're in your 20s or 30s, read this. Now, it's in this author's case. He also does narrate his story. He's a lovely British voice. It's really fun. It's not too long, so you can read it or you can listen to it. Either way, it was really great wisdom, really great advice. And I'll put the link in our comments. I'll put the link in our description.
I love that. I actually did have one. My hidden gem is an app. It's a meditation app. It's called Waking Up. And a friend of mine turned me on to it. And I've used a number of different meditation apps, but I think, I try and meditate every day. But what I started out with was apps that, have kind of like relaxing music or, bird sounds or whatever. And they put you in this kind of very relaxed state. But this app takes a slightly different approach to meditation, which I found really helpful in that it's an app designed by Sam Harris, and whether you agree with Sam Harris his opinions or whatever, this app just has an approach to meditation that is kind of, you don't try and block anything out. You don't try and put on the relaxing music. It's basically about just sort of being present with whatever's going on around you. And to put it sort of crudely, everything that happens, the thoughts in your mind, the sounds you hear, the sensations in your body, all appear in this sort of cloud of consciousness, and then you can just kind of let go of all of it. That's a poor description of how it works. But what it did was it taught me to meditate when the conditions weren't perfect, because I used to sort of be a bit too concerned with making the conditions perfect, and there has to be no noise and there has to be that. But this is sort of about just being present in whatever's going on for a period of meditation. And I found that it's actually helped me just be okay with it's made me more relaxed, I think, in the world, because now I can meditate with heavy traffic in the background, because it's not about that. It's not about creating the perfect conditions it's just about accepting what's going on. Also has a very good system of it is a paid app. There is a free trial period, but he has a pay what you can sort of a system. So you kind of pitch a price and go, I'd like to pay this for the year, and the app either says yes or no. So that's
Oh,
cool. If you
I
can't
never heard
afford
of
to
that.
pay full price, I'd never heard of that either. Not with an app. So
That's
anyway,
kinda
waking
cool.
up. Yeah, if you're into meditation and you're just looking for a slightly different approach to it, it's a good way to just switch it up a bit.
Who knows? We might have to dig into this future episode. All this.
It's worth trying because I probably just made an absolute bollocks of that explanation. But
Well, I'm intrigued.
trust me.
I'm intrigued
Yeah.
by it. Anyway, all right. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Join us next week. That's our episode. Have a good one.
all right, guys, see you next week.
Well, thanks for watching, guys. If you like what you saw, maybe give a like, maybe subscribe. It helps people find the podcast. Also, if you didn't catch last week's episode, it's right over here. Don't worry, we'll wait.